Welcome back to Stray Trains. With the possibility of a ticketing overhaul for public transport in Victoria over the next few years, in this video we're going to take a look at the current ticketing system, which is called Myki. We will take a look at some of the main features, the pricing, and some frequently asked questions that you might have. Just two quick notes. The entirety of this video will be in full fare terms unless specified, but generally speaking, concession rates are half price of the full fare, and this will also be for the current pricing, which is and came into effect from January 1, 2025. Hope you enjoy the video. So once you bought a Myki for $6, it comes down to the age-old decision. What do you choose, Myki Money or Myki Pass? Well, it depends exactly how much you're going to travel per week or per month as to which one is the better option, but let's talk about what exactly each of them are. Myki Money is essentially pay-as-you-go. Think of Myki Money, which gets broken down each day into two blocks. The first block is up to 2 hours of travel, and if you travel for any more than 2 hours in the same day, the fare will double and max out. The 2-hourly fare is $5.50, and the full fare, so if you travel more than 2 hours, is $11. On weekends and public holiday, the max daily rate is $7.60 and the 2-hour rate is half of that, $3.80. A day is defined to begin at 3:01 a.m. So if you finish your journey beyond midnight on a specific day that we typically know to be, you won't be charged another rate. Now, one downside to Myki Money is it's not actually entirely how long you travel for. It's from when you first touch on to your last touch off in a particular day. So let's say you touch on at 9 a.m. and get off the train at 9:10. Then a few hours later at 4 p.m. you get on the train and then get off at 4:10 p.m. You've only travelled for 20 minutes on the entire day. That is 10 minutes in each direction. But because you first touched on at 9 a.m. and last touched off at 4:10 p.m., you've therefore travelled for more than 2 hours in the eye of the system. So essentially, you're going to pay a daily fare despite only travelling just the 20 minutes. On the other hand, if you decide to take the Myki Pass option, it doesn't matter how many times you touch on or off throughout the day or how long you travel for per day. However, the trade-off is to think of it like more of a contract. For example, if you get a 7-day pass, from the moment you tap on, you've got 7 days to travel for as many times and for as long as you want. Even if you travel for only 3 out of the 7 days, as soon as you tap on that Myki Pass for a 7-day pass, your 7 days will begin. The benefit, though, to Myki Pass is if you are travelling a lot and it becomes worth it to buy the pass, you save money as the average daily rate is slightly cheaper. So how do you determine which one is best for you? Quite commonly, people might get a 1-month pass for 28 days, the equivalent of 4 weeks. That will cost you $184.80. So if you divide that by 11, which is a daily fare, you get a total of 16.8 days. That means in order to break even, you need to travel the 16.8 days, or to start saving money, you must travel at least 17 out of a 28-day period cycle. So if you travel less than 17 days, Myki Money will be worth it. 17 or more, the Myki Pass. For someone that works, for example, a Monday to Friday job, they will generally travel 20 out of 28 days in a roster, or 4 weeks, which means the Myki Pass is worth it. You will save a little bit of money. But don't forget, if you happen to get sick by some unfortunate circumstance, or due to public holidays, or for whatever reason you don't travel as initially planned, if you've got to remember that as soon as you touch on that Myki Pass, the timer will begin, and it doesn't matter how many times you travel. So if you touch it on and don't travel for 27 more days afterwards, you'll still be set back that $184.80. So that's a general rundown of the pricing of Myki, but there's still so much more. Another factor to remember is Myki cards expire, just like your credit cards. Myki cards have their own life too, of a total of 4 years. Now, once that 4 years has gone through, if you try to tap on or top up your Myki at a machine, it will say the card is expired. Don't throw this card out. Instead, go to any booking office, for instance at metro stations, and they will actually replace the Myki card for you free of charge, and any money that's on the card will go straight onto the new card for you. So this means you're going to save yourself potentially an extra $6 of buying a new card by going to get your expired card changed over, plus any money that's on it. So once again, if your card is expired, don't throw it away. Another common question is, can I combine Myki cards with each other? And the answer is sort of yes. Now, if you've got multiple cards and you want to combine them onto one, you've got two options. Firstly, you can just use the other cards till they go to a zero or negative balance and then keep them as spares. But if you do actually want to combine them, there's only one way to do it. You can't actually go to a metro station or Yarra Tram's customer service or a machine. You've actually got to ring the PTV number, which is the 1-800 number on the back of your Myki card, and they can actually do it for you. Now, we're all trying to save $1 or $2. How can you travel for free on the network? Well, not very often, but there are certain ways. The most common way is the weekday early bird travel. If you take a train anywhere and touch on before 7 a.m. and make sure that you are touched off by 7:15 a.m., your journey is free. So that means if you travel somewhere before 7 a.m. in the morning and then go back home, let's say at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, you'll essentially only pay a 2-hour fare because the morning travel is free. That's assuming you can get home within 2 hours of traveling. There is a little quirk here that for some reason you need to have positive balance to travel. So if you've got a negative balance on your Myki, you can't travel for free. This same concept applies for the Myki Pass for some reason. Even if you're traveling with Myki Pass and thus not using Myki Money, if your Myki Money balance is negative, you can't actually activate the pass. There is also the free tram zone, but in my own words, this is kind of a big scam. Unless you live within the CBD, the free tram zone doesn't really save you money. Without going too much into it, as there are certain negative aspects of the free tram zone, if you decide to train, tram or bus into the city and then spend a few hours, get lunch, walk around, whatever you want to do, and then a few hours later go home, you'll still be paying the daily fare, even though you can travel in the city for free on trams. Because you've touched on it, let's say 8 a.m. to go into the city, and then you get home at 5 p.m., you're still going to pay the daily fare. So the free tram zone doesn't really save you money. Is it really free unless you live in the city? So that is one with an asterisk. It technically is free travel, but not really if you look at the bigger picture. If you have the right concessions, such as being a Victorian seniors, on weekends and public holidays, public transport is free. The only exception to this is it only applies within 2 zones of travel. So if you travel from zone 1 to 2, that is free travel. But let's say you want to travel as a Victorian senior on a V line, let's say on a weekend, from Melbourne to even Geelong. Because Geelong is outside of zone 2, you will still have to pay, but again, it would remain at that concession rate. And the last free travel I can think of is on New Year's Eve, maybe the busiest time in our city every year, from 6 p.m. on New Year's Eve to 6 a.m. on New Year's Day. Travel is free. And the maybe biggest question of them all, that is, should I touch off? Well, just to be clear, as a general rule of thumb, you should always touch on. In regards to touching off, sometimes on trams, for example, it might say touch on your Myki, but you don't need to touch off. So being that that is the case, fair enough, but I would still always recommend touching off. This is because let's say you want to go from a tram to a train, and this train station has the barriers. The barriers work only if your Myki is in the correct mode on the correct side. So if you're touched off and you want to exit the barriers, you can't go through, with the Myki at least. The same applies if you want to touch on and you're already touched on, the barriers won't open and it will say you've already touched on. So that means that if you touch on a tram, don't touch off and then go through the barriers at a station, it's going to think you've already touched on, be confused and won't open the barriers. So if you, for instance, touch off once you've finished your tram journey, walk to the station, your Myki will be touched off, you'll touch back on. If you're within that 2 hours, again, you won't pay more, but it will just make travelling that little bit quicker and save you having to ask someone to let you through the barriers, which could be all the difference to make your train. In saying that, it is recommended, or at least I recommend, to touch off, a few seconds or so before you get to your stop. So essentially, once the doors open, you can just exit the tram as if you weren't touching off. So that means that the passenger flow is still as good and you've still touched off, which can make it a little bit easier for you. Your fare is only deducted once you touch off. So to be clear, if you don't touch off, you won't get your fare deducted that day, but the next time you touch on, it will be like a touch off and on. So it will deduct your fare from the previous day travel because you haven't touched off and then touch you on simultaneously. So by not touching off, you aren't going to save money. There is plenty more to talk about, such as student concessions, online Myki and whatnot. But for now, I think we'll leave it at that. If you want a part 2, let me know. Hope you learned a thing or two, though, about the Myki system. And I think we'll leave it at that. Cheers.